Hello everybody, this is Tessie Walker with Nicole. Hello, I don't know if you can see her too well, but we are here with the APL Readers Corner, and today we're going to be discussing and reviewing the book Wild Seed by Octavia E. Butler. So we're going to do a brief summary of what we're actually doing today, talk a little bit about the book, the genre, and about Butler herself, and then we're going to get into a discussion portion. So if anybody who has read the book, who saw the Facebook post that was posted, I believe on Monday, about our reading list. If you've read the book and you want to join into the discussion, make sure to comment below. Otherwise, we'll be putting this video on our blog and on YouTube, and it's going to be on Facebook for a while, so anybody who wants to can comment and ask us questions, and then we will answer them as they come. Okay, so we'll wait a couple of minutes to see who else wants to join us. I hope everybody's having a good day. Today's a little bit chilly compared to the rest of the week, so sweater weather, and I hope everybody is safe at home, so I hope that's going pretty well.
We got some viewers here.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
we got a couple likes or loves from some peeps. Hi, peeps.
I was going to mention this at the end, but we can mention it now here again. So we're the Aurora Library is going to be doing a lot of virtual programming in the next couple of weeks. If you haven't already seen some of it, it'll be popping up. One of the things that we've been doing is virtual story time. So if you're at home with your kids and you want to join in for story time, make sure to tune into those. They usually have it most of the days of the week at 10 a.m. The next one, I believe, is going to be on the 30th, so on Monday at 10 a.m. And I think the theme is bears, so that's exciting.
Bears!
I know, right?
So much fun.
Super cute.
They've been doing a lot of great story times lately, so please tune in for everyone who hasn't yet, because it is awesome. Everyone's doing their part, and we're having a lot of fun with this new virtual platform we're trying to use.
What do you think about getting started?
Alright, I'm ready. Cool. Are you ready?
I am ready. Cool.
Alright, let's do this.
Thank you guys all for joining us. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are reviewing and discussing the book Wild Seed by Octavia E. Butler. The idea behind APL Readers Corner is that we'll pick a different genre and a book from that genre every week, and then Friday at 1 p.m. we'll be live streaming a book discussion / review that anybody can join in. You can leave comments and we'll address them during the live session, so hopefully we'll get some interactions. If you haven't read the book and you want to in the future, just know that this is going to be full of spoilers, and so you might want to wait until after the video is uploaded on Facebook or on our YouTube channel if you're super interested in reading the book before you hear anything about it. The genre this week is sci-fi fantasy, and the books are kind of chosen by staff based off preference. I chose this book because I've read it before, like a couple years ago. I'd forgotten sort of what it was about, but I remember enjoying reading it, and so I was like, let's do this book again. And so I know Nicole liked it, although we'll hear her thoughts later.
I did. I also loved you gave me a great book talk. Your little summary was kind of what got me interested in the book to begin with.
Oh, cool. I kind of forgot what summary it was.
Shape-shifting. It was awesome.
There you go. Yeah, this is a book in a series, and so it's book 1 of the Patternist series, so if you read this book and you like it, you can keep reading the rest of the series. One reviewer had a really good point in that by the end of the series you can see the way the actions in the first book are taken to their most logical and like extreme conclusions by the end, so it makes it a very continuous kind of series, even though each of them are standalone. Another description that has been used to describe the series is that it's a secret history. The idea, basically the summary of the book is that there are two immortals who start in Africa and it's basically the power struggle between two immortals, and one of them is a shapeshifter, like Nicole mentioned. So a little bit about the author. So if you guys haven't heard about Octavia E. Butler, she's an amazing science fiction author. She's an African-American sci-fi writer. She has received multiple Hugo and Nebula awards. So she is a very good writer, and her stuff is very... It's not... When you think sci-fi or you think fantasy, it's not as... her work doesn't come to mind. A lot of it is a lot of social commentary with the background of science fiction and fantasy. So I really enjoy her work. The average review of this book in particular, Wild Seed, ranges, like, its average is 4.5 out of 5, and so that's a pretty good review over all of them, over Amazon, over Google, over Goodreads. That's the average rating, so a lot of people enjoy this book. So it's not just us. It's not just us. One particular reviewer that I read, her article, it was called Who's Human Anyway, Who's Free? Octavia Butler's Pattern Series, and that was on Tor.com. It was by Jo Walton. She has a really good insight into the book. She calls the series a compulsive page turner, or compulsive page turners, because there's 5 books. And she calls Butler one of the most readable writers in the world. So it's a really easy read, and it's a lot of fun, I think. I think reading her work is a lot of fun. Some of the themes that are in this book in particular are power struggles. Like I mentioned, the two immortals are having a power struggle during it. There's a strong female protagonist, which is a strong female woman of color who's the protagonist of the series. And the other immortal, his name is Doro. He's sort of the antagonist, and so the two of them are just having this continuous power struggle as they go throughout history. And there's a lot of commentary on eugenics. There's a lot of talk about slavery, patriarchy, so there's a lot in there that makes it a really good book. So that's kind of the summary of everything that has to go with the book. A more in-depth summary is that there's 2 main characters, and the first character, Doro, who I mentioned, he's the antagonist. He isn't quite a shapeshifter. He has a power that he jumps from human body to human body, and so when he does that, he kills people. So it's just inherent in the way his power works, is that when he jumps to another person, it kills the person he was in, and then it kills the soul, I think, of the person that he jumps into. But it's not by choice. Like, he has to do it to keep surviving. And then at the beginning of the book, he meets another immortal who at first he thinks is like several generations, like his great-great-great-great-granddaughter or something like that, but I'm not really quite sure if that was what was the explanation in the book. Sometimes it gets fuzzy, like she might have just developed those powers on her own, or it might have been from him. But she's a shape changer, so she can control how her body works, and this is a sci-fi element, which is that she can read the DNA of anything that she, I want to say, like, consume, because she becomes a dolphin by eating some dolphin at one point, but she can read the DNA and become that thing. But she could also turn into something even if she doesn't read the DNA, so she could turn into another human without eating another human, but just by seeing them. So her ability is really interesting in that because she can shape change, she can also heal. And so she's a healer, and she's against killing, and she doesn't like violence, but she's also immortal because she can always renew her body. So, and I guess this will bring us to the commentary. So we don't have any questions yet, but feel free to ask questions as we go along, and I'll open it up to Nicole and let her tell us what she thought of the book.
All right, yeah. So I love love science fiction and fantasy. I've read definitely different works of other authors that I've enjoyed. This one is probably my first of Octavia Butler, and it was good. Some of the reviews that were given was she's a page turner. She really sucks you in from the moment you start, and I think that's really true. I've never experienced shapeshifters like that, where you have, kind of a good and evil, light and dark. You have the good shapeshifter Anyanwu. I hope I said her name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. She has firm beliefs and she heals people. She also learns how to heal people by, trying different things within herself to figure out how she can continue to heal people and stuff. And then you have Doro, where he's been around for eons, way more than Anyanwu, and he's kind of set in his ways, where he believes that really him and his children, or his his community or whatever, is just set on breeding and coming up with the best set of genetics possible. And obviously Anyanwu doesn't really agree with that. She feels kind of different towards her community. She thinks of them as her family. She's very loyal to her family. And Doro is kind of different. And so it's really interesting, like you said, the power struggle and just the two of them clashing, but then at the same time coming together. And you want to hate Doro, like I had said. You want to hate him so bad because he is evil. He is okay with killing other people. He has to. But at the same time, you kind of feel for him because that is how he continues. If he doesn't, he is nothing more than a spirit. So that's really interesting. So I definitely liked it. It was a little heavy sometimes, though. I gotta say, when you go over the years that they're together and that they're apart, they're constantly building communities in every area that they are. And sometimes that means either of them, some of their children die, and some of them end up getting killed. And so it gets pretty heavy, but overall I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I did as well. I think the part that I'd forgotten was just even though it's a power struggle, because Anyan Wu is younger, and because she's a woman, even though she can change her shape, so it's very fluid, but because she was born a woman, even though she had special powers, the fact that she's younger and she's a woman, it's kind of a reflection of the patriarchy, where Doro is the extreme version of a man that has total control over your life. And so it's really interesting to see how basically how she struggles against it and how she gives into it, and that back and forth. I want to say, because the book is split up into 3 parts, so there's a part 1 where they kind of meet, and then they're still trying to figure out each other, and then there's a part 2 where Doro is almost completely dominant over her, and then part 3 where their power dynamics shift. And so in part 2 I was oh, I hate Doro, I hate everything he represents, I hate everything that he does. And then I felt really sorry for Anyanwu being caught in that situation, but also not knowing how she should get out of it. Because she didn't want her children hurt by him, and so it was basically she was being controlled by him through them. And then I think there was a certain point where she decided that she wasn't going to be controlled anymore, and then she left. And so that was near the end of book 2. And then when they came back together again, she made Doro realized a bit more of his humanity, which Nicole mentioned, I don't you feel a little bit sorry for him, because he's with his powers, that's the only way that he can actually live, is that he has to jump from person to person and then kill them. And then I think they find a compromise together once Anyanwu makes him realize his more human emotions, which he probably lost, because Nicole mentioned that he is millennia old. So, like, I think there's a really small passage where they mentioned that he was Nubian before, like, during a time period where Egypt was in chaos, so it was probably like during a period of history way back then. And so he's been alive for 3,000, 4,000 years by the time we get to Wild Seed. And so he's been living a very long life and seeing people just die around him. So he kind of shed those elements of his humanity that made him care about that. And then I think she brings those back.
Oh yeah, definitely. Some of our discussion questions that we had, where do you think Doro got his powers? That was something he mentioned very briefly during his transition when he was very young, and how he moved from his mother to his father, and he kind of didn't understand what was going on. So it was like, where? How come all his other things didn't do that? All his other kids didn't have that kind of power. Like, it was interesting.
Okay. Yeah, no, I really like reading more of it. Like, I don't think they ever give you an explanation of where those powers come from. I think that's the fantasy element to it, is just that some people are just born with special powers. So I thought that was really interesting. But we...
Ooh, we have a comment. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Alright, so I got Megan here. How would you compare Octavia Butler's style/accessibility to that of N.K. Jemisin, the 5th season, or Tomi Adeyemi, Children of Blood and Bone? Have you read those?
I have not. Although if you look behind me, like the 5th season, I have N.K. Jemisin right here that I've been waiting to read because I read a small portion on audiobook, I want to say 2 years ago, and I knew my mind was going to be blown away when I read that series, and so I've been saving it for when I actually have the time to sit down and read it, which I haven't yet, but maybe I will in the next coming weeks. So I haven't read either of those series, unfortunately, even though I really want to.
I need to too. I got another question from Jordan. Do you think that Octavia Butler is following in the vein of new literary sci-fi fantasy, where there is a focus on the fall of humanity, kind of like The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin, or Embassy Town by China Miéville? Sorry if I say that name wrong. It seems she's definitely making social commentary, like we have said, but I'm curious if the social commentary is part of painting a larger picture on humankind's flaws as a whole rather than just social issues, i.e. environmentalism or moralism. Interesting.
I want to say, like, Octavia Butler, so Wild Seed was published in 1980, so her work wasn't really recognized, I want to say, until recently, so not a lot of people read her stuff. And a lot of her work is kind of influenced by the second age feminism. So let me read the question a little bit better. Fall of humanity. I don't say it gives a focus on the fall of humanity. I think a lot of her work focuses on examining different elements. So like in Wild Seeds, she examines the patriarchy, she examines slavery through the lens of science fiction using these immortals. So one thing that they're doing in the series is that Doro is trying to basically create bodies for himself because he likes living in the bodies of people with special powers. And so in bringing these communities together, he searches the world for people who have special powers, and then he brings them together and he breeds them. So there's a lot of eugenics in this book. And then Anyan Wu is like horrified by this, but later she compromises on the fact that yes, she likes being surrounded by people with special powers. But at first it starts from a slavery point of view where people that he has in these communities are special kind of slavery, and the time periods that they focus on in the book itself are in a big chunk of it is in North America when slaves were coming over. And so they're in Africa and they're seeing slaves being shipped over to North America, and then they are dealing with what those consequences are while they're there. So it's one part, it's in the world of slavery, and then they have their own special brand of slavery that Doro is creating, and then Anyanwu isn't participating. Like, she participates, but she's not aiding it. And later, she isn't even creating slavery, but she's going along with the eugenics idea that if they live in a community and they develop people who have these special powers, they are family, is what her view is. While Doro is like, oh, bodies for me. But
oh, that's perfect.
yeah.
I love that.
But yeah, I think
All right.
Butler's. Oh, sorry. I think Butler is very. I think she may like precede some of those authors. Maybe not Ursula Le Guin, but I don't know exactly her timeline with her books either. But those books are really good.
Yeah.
She's a great author.
No, that was awesome. So I have one last question for you before we wrap up. Would you continue this Patterness series to the end?
Me personally, or everybody who's watching?
You personally.
Me personally. Yes, I'm curious to see. I mentioned earlier, one reviewer said that the ideas in the first book continue on and are like stretched to their logical conclusion. So like, what do you do if you keep breeding people with special powers? How does that work out later in the future? And I think as we go along in the books, they become more sci-fi. But I'm also like, parts of this book were very heavy. I've read like, I think the first 2 books in her other series, Xenogenesis, and that one was a lot more sci-fi because it involved aliens, which was really cool, but they were very heavy and involved a lot of body horror, which this one does a little bit, but not quite as much. So I'd have to be ready for heavy topics, which isn't always the case. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'd want to continue to find out a little, like, especially knowing that each book was written, like, the Wild Seed was written in the 80s, but she started this series in the 70s.
Yeah.
And so they all somehow morphed into a different timeline than probably how she wrote it. So it'd be interesting to see some of her earlier books compared to this one, which was much later than her earlier ones. So yeah, I definitely think I would.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And like we mentioned before, we'll answer any comments that come up after the video is posted. So if anybody has anything to share about this book, we will answer. The next book, so next Friday, we're going to be going into contemporary literature, and the book that we're going to review / discuss is The Storied Life of A.K. Fickery by Gabrielle Zevin. So I think there's a bookstore in that book. That would be like close to the library, because obviously in a library we want to read about books in a book.
That and anywhere but my house.
That's true.
I wanted to travel somewhere other than my house.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that. And like I mentioned before, check out our other virtual programs. So the next virtual story time is going to be on Monday, the 30th at 10 a.m. 10 a.m., yes. So thank you guys for all joining us while we reviewed this book. And I hope it makes you want to read this book or want to read some of the books by Octavia Butler, because her work is amazing and it's always very thoughtful and thought-provoking. And I hope you guys all have a great rest of your week. Or, yeah, the week's almost over. A great rest of your day, at least. So, all right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.